You sure?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about anything.
All right, cool.
All right, cool. This seems very official at the table here.
It does feel very official.
Very court-like.
You're
Very
far away.
Yes, but that's good because I still don't know you that well.
Okay, great, perfect.
Yeah, so we're back with another episode of what did I call this again? Real Talk. Which you go to Faith Church, so you're familiar with the Real Talk
Yes.
YouTube show. Which I promise, when I came up with the name, I was not aware of it.
Oh, okay.
But it is really upsetting, especially because I want to be on an episode of that so bad.
On the Faith Church Real Talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, I probably never will because who am I? You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Makes sense.
I'm no one. Anyway, so yeah, here we are on my Real Talk.
Okay.
And today we're going to talk about singleness.
Yeah.
But not just singleness, I guess. Yeah.
Singleness.
And what relationships can look like within singleness.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here with Mandy Siess.
Yep.
Am I saying that right?
Close, yeah. You got it.
Mandy
Yep.
Siess.
Mm-hmm.
And she so graciously opened up her home for us to come here and record this.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice of you. And I will be posting the address in the description. So if anybody,
Oh my gosh, that's good.
if anybody wants to come and visit,
Oh man.
please feel free. Yeah, and I mean, so I haven't known you very long. I think since December, but we have sat down and like had conversations about this particular topic, and I was just really hit by a lot of the things that you had to say and your perspective, and so I thought it'd be cool to get you on here and tell the masses what you kind of told me, and I guess just about your experience and everything. So what is your actual name? Mandy Siess?
Yep.
Mandy Siess. Is it Amanda or is it?
It is Amanda, yeah.
Amanda.
A couple people call me that.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Love them. Great people.
Great people. Great people.
And not my grandparents either.
No.
No.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. But at least they know.
Yep.
Well. Yeah, so I don't know. Do we just go into this? Yeah. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about your background and just your journey through singleness?
Sure. Yeah. I wasn't really single much of my life after like the dating world kind of started, as a teenager, and dated a couple of guys and ended up getting married at 23. And then in 2019, we separated and I became single. Now I am officially in the longest season of singleness that I've been since I started the dating world as a high school kid.
And I'm sorry, so wait, when did you get married?
2015.
2015, okay.
Yep. So it would have been almost 7 years. And then we separated in 2019. So we were married a little over 4 years. And we had a daughter. She's almost 5 now. Well, she is 5, sorry. She turned 5 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, awesome birthday thing, by the way. That was really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
The video you did.
It was fun. It was a good time. Yeah, so now I'm single for 3 years, and I'm also a single mom. So that adds an element to it. But yeah, living the life of singleness, which has its pros and cons. And I feel like I'm only learning what it's like to be single outside of being married. Like before being married, I didn't spend a whole lot of time single. So,
can you think back to your mindset, I guess, prior to now, like whenever you were single, because you said you were single often. What was your mindset like during those times when you were?
Most of the time, I think society just tells us to be single, or being single is not a season of waiting, or it is a season of waiting, but it's not a good thing. It's not looked upon as a good thing in society. And it's basically like society tells you that if you're single, you have to be looking. And if you're single, you have to be looking for marriage and looking for that person and not being content in singleness because the world wants you to get married. So that's what you do. You look for that person.
Yeah.
And so every moment that I was single, I was looking for somebody to date.
Just out of curiosity, I'm not entirely, so you are a Christian, and so what was your mindset at the time? Like, was that a factor, in like people you were looking for to date, or was it kind of just like, I don't want to be alone, or?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I would say now looking back, I was not really a Christian at the time. I grew up in a Christian home, had great parents, but I don't think that the values were, like I never really grasped them as far as what it meant to look for a godly man. And that's at no fault to anybody but my own. And so I think when I was seeking and looking to date, it was I didn't want to be alone. And that's what you did. The world told you that you dated, and you dated until you found somebody to marry. And there's a lot of things that go along with that in the process of dating and seeking and who you were seeking. But I didn't date any Christians, and it wasn't really a high value for me at the time. That's different now, but at the time it was really just find that person that will love you back, and then you won't be alone.
Mm-hmm. And I think, probably touch on it as we go, but like, I think it's one thing to like look for a Christian person, and have that be one of your values. But like when you really kind of dissect that and see what that can mean, in a good sense and a bad sense, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of like your life now, like being able to look back and be like, okay, even if you were looking for like a Christian, there's probably things now because of the experiences you've had where you can look and be like, okay, yeah, just because you say you're a Christian doesn't necessarily mean anything.
100%.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Cool. So, do you want to like just take us through like a brief, I guess, synopsis of kind of what happened and, where you're at now?
Sure. Yeah, so in as far as like being married, and then going through that. So in 2019, I was not given the choice to be separated, and it was just a choice that he had made to leave, and I was left with my daughter. She was 2.5 at the time. He didn't go completely missing. He's still part of her life and a great dad to her. But we separated. And at the time that the separation happened, obviously it was really chaotic, really scary. A lot of spiritual things happening that were surrounding it. I was really digging into my faith and seeking who God was, looking for Jesus and holding on to Jesus for dear life. And it just was a journey for me, really. And I felt like it was something that God allowed to happen in order for me to share my story. But at the time, it was really rough, just not knowing if God would restore my marriage or not. And then things happened along the way, things that weren't the greatest.
And that's something, touching back on something you just said, like that idea of restoration, that was something you wanted, correct?
Oh, yeah, for a long time. I did everything I could that I knew how to for about 1.5 years after he decided to leave. And it was something I held on to and prayed very, very hard for. Many nights spent in prayer for that to happen, and it didn't. And I had to come to terms with that and accept that. I just remember one day God kind of put on my heart, like, it's okay to let it go. And the weight that I felt of that, where it was, I did the best I could and the best that I knew. I wasn't perfect by any means. But it just wasn't going to happen. And so I was on this journey where I was single, but I had been married. So there was history there. But I had to learn how to be single. I had to learn how to be a single mom. And I fought so hard to resist it because of what the world tells us, what it's like to be single and what it's like to be a single mom.
What did that look like, fighting to resist it?
I didn't want to ever label myself as a single mom. So when I would talk to people, I would say I was just separated, or I would, I hated going through all the paperwork involved, through a divorce, finalizing a divorce and everything. It was like every signature was painful for me. It was not what I wanted. And, people would reach out to help me. They would look at me and they'd say, oh, she's a single mom, or she's going through this separation. And they'd reach out and they would give me something or help me with something. And she's walking around.
Oh yeah, there's a dog.
My dog's here with us.
For those maybe just listening, she's great. So
yeah, they would reach out. They would do things for me, and I always felt like it was something they felt they had to do because I was a single mom. It wasn't because it was out of the goodness of their heart or they were kind to me. It was just that they were, they felt bad for me. And so I didn't want anybody to ever feel bad for me. Even though it wasn't my choice, it was still, not something that I wanted to fall victim of and be labeled as a single mom. And also the word divorce, like I avoided using that too, in the world with, saying you're a single mom and saying you're divorced. Even just saying that now, anybody listening can just have their own thoughts about what that means. Yeah. And it's not, myself included, I was super judgmental to other single moms and other people that have been divorced. And two of the greatest fears that I've ever had growing up were to be divorced and a single mom, and both of them came true. So I was like, great, thanks God, that's awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
What a gift. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. And I'm sure, just again, the Christian aspect of that and the way a lot of Christians view divorce is just like this.
Yeah.
If you do that, like you're ruined, like you're done for,
And the thoughts too that if you're divorced, that you did something wrong, or you're broken. There's something wrong with you, and it's not so much like, it just comes across as like a bad thing, and it's not accepted, especially in the Christian world too. People look at divorce like, oh, you gave up, or oh, you didn't, work hard enough at it. You didn't love each other enough, or all those.
You didn't
things.
Trust God enough.
Yeah, you didn't trust God. You didn't do what you needed to do, and the Bible says don't leave your spouse. And it's like, well, what happens when that happens to you?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you didn't choose that, so I didn't choose it.
Huh.
Yeah.
So what kind of helped you, I guess, come to terms with it?
A lot of prayer. A lot of people, honestly, like people just speaking truth and encouragement into me. Like, it's okay. It's, we still love you. We still accept you. That's still, huge. You are strong. And they would just speak words into me. And I'm like, I don't believe any of this stuff. And I had to break down the barriers of society and what the world tells you, and rebuild what God says and who God is and who we are as his children, and put that into my head and retrain my head. And I still do that now. It's still a hard thing to do. And people look at me, or they'll assume that they'll say like, oh, your husband. I'm like, we're not together. But even now I won't use the term ex-husband. I think it's so negative. It's just like a negative connotation. So it's my daughter's father. It's her dad. It's not my ex-husband, even though it is.
But just, having that attitude of like, while this is something that happened, it's not something that defines me. Oh, boy, you're so big. She's large and curious.
Her nails keep clicking all over the floor.
Nah, it's fine. That's okay. It's more naturalistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let her just do that for a little bit, and then I can sell like a sound effect, like if you need pause on the floor or something like that.
Put little boots on her.
Yeah, little boots. Kitten mittens. Sorry. So yeah, you said redefining what singleness means in God's eyes. What do you think that means to you now?
Oh my gosh. It's a whole other experience. I wouldn't even, you can't even compare it. I know I fall into the trap where, once you're married, like you got it all together and your life is good and you're situated and you're settled, and it's like, it's just not the case.
Yeah.
Like, now I think it's a time of your life where I kind of came to grips where it was like, this is a time of my life where God wants me just to himself. When you do get married, you have to share your attention and your time and your energy. And so for me, it's like every moment that I have that I'm by myself where people would be with their spouse, I am with God. And it's like he could really focus, and I could spend a lot of time with him and just learning about myself. And honestly, like the biggest thing in the season is just to learn about who you are and learn about, for me, like not being single much before I got married. I fell into almost like a chameleon where I kind of became what the person I dated wanted, or I tried to make them what I wanted, and had this like picture perfect image in my head of what the family would look like and should look like. And it's just not true. And so now there are certain things about me, like just ways that I think, or weird quirks about me that I've come to realize that they're okay and they're not weird. Or I've had comments made before in past relationships, like, why are you quiet, or why are you socially awkward in front of groups of people? And it's like, well, that's just the way that I am. I'm introverted, and a lot of people is overwhelming for me. So just realizing that that's okay. And I think everybody needs a time to realize who they are. She's just saying hi.
Yeah, that's fun.
And like, just like learn to accept themselves and love who they are and who God created you to be. And that's hard to do because loneliness is a real thing, and the world is loud around you. Valentine's Day is in 2 days. You know, it's like there's no day that's a singles holiday of the year.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a lot of love holidays between Valentine's Day, anniversaries, you know, anything like wedding days, engagement days. I mean, everything's surrounded by love stories, romantic comedies, Disney princesses. Everybody has happily ever afters, and it's just not. It's not the reality of the world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. So, I guess, I think, what is it like for you now? Because this is something I struggle with. Like, I'm in a, I guess, period of singleness. I'm single, you know, and like, I still hope to, you know, be married and like have a family and all of that. But like, trying to, I guess, balance between like just living, you know, and not necessarily like making that like an idol, you know.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you, do you think?
It does become an idol. I mean, I'm the same way. Even though I was married and I'm now single, like I still hope to be married again someday too, and find that right person for me that I am looking for. But at the same time, I think there's like this tension that you live with, that God created man and woman to be together. But because of sin, things happen. Like, because of sin is why I'm in the position I am today. And, but like remaining in that season of singleness and just learning to be content. And it's a daily decision. Trust me. Like, some days are easier than others. And some days I'm like, I hate this so much. This is so hard.
Valentine's Day. Literally the worst.
But at the same time, it's like, that's no different in marriage. You're going to be married and you're going to have days where you're like, this is so hard. I hate this. And so I remember thinking to myself not too long ago, like, there will be a day that I'll miss this season.
Wow.
And hearing, when that kind of came to me and that was like put on my heart, just like you will miss the fact that you can make your own decisions and you're independent. I have my daughter, but I can like make my own financial decisions, and I can go on vacation wherever I want, and I can hang out with whoever I want, whenever I want. And for that period of my life, like that's really nice. You know, I had a friend call one day and was like, hey, can you come over? Jumped in the car, went and hung out with her for a couple hours. And when you have a family and you're married, you can't do that. So I think looking for those hidden blessings that you do have in seasons of singleness, where you're just like, you just need to embrace what God does give you. And God uses me in ways now that he could never have used me had I stayed married. And he's using me in ways now that he can't use when I do get married, whether that's with, like time is a big one, like time to be with people individually, have lunch with people, reach out to a community. When you do get married, you're with this person, so you don't feel the need to go get dinner with people all the time. And now, like in days where I'm like, I don't want to be by myself, I'm like, hey, do you want to go get dinner? Do you want to get lunch? Do you want to get brunch? Different people all the time. Yeah.
And I think it's cool. One thing for me that has really helped me in this period of singleness, obviously, like, again, wanting something, but like I'm able to take the time to really like just get to know women, like for no other reason than to get to know women, you know, like especially like with men, there's just that complex where it's like, you know, you have to conquer women or whatever, like, and everyone you date, like, depending on, I don't know, if you're a Christian, it's like, why aren't you married yet? Or like, why aren't you dating? Why aren't you actively like with somebody right now?
Yeah.
And then obviously if you're not, it's kind of just like, how many people have you slept with this week? You know? And so, and so, you know, I guess being in a place where I can be content as a Christian and as a single Christian and just being like, man, like there's so much value in just sitting down, obviously, and just talking to women and hearing their heart without having any ulterior motives, you know, and learning from the opposite sex and just, I like many of my friends are women. I told you this, like I just came back from a book study with my one female friend and, you know, it's just, it's very refreshing to just sit down and just have a conversation with somebody and learn about them without like having that weight of, you know, you know?
Yeah. I don't trust you anymore. You're alone with a woman.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And obviously, there are still like boundaries and everything that you have to have in place, but like, man, I think it is a lost art, platonic relationships, you know, and the value of that and the types of intimacy that exist outside of like sexuality and things that you can gain without,
and just learning how people think and, you know, like breaking down the stereotypes of what people tell you in the world. Again, it's just a big thing. And, you know, having the patience to learn about people and the open heart and the open mind to learn about how people think and how they're driven too. Like women are driven by emotions and acceptance and, you know, love. Men are more driven by like physical appearance and, you know, it really
exterior
just
success or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And being able to then tap into, like for me, I think I'm more in touch with my emotions than the average man. Something that, I mean, I guess until fairly recently I wasn't really accepting of, but like now that I am and having these female relationships, I'm able to like touch on those more than you can with your guy buddies when you're just talking about guy stuff, like, which is fine, but you know what I mean? Like,
it's different when you have a relationship with somebody, a platonic one. And
exactly.
You can learn so much from them. And I think it's important to also, like learning about, so I've been single now for almost 3 years, and I haven't dated anybody. And it's, sometimes when I say that to people, they'll think that there's something wrong with me. Like it's a common denominator, you know, 3 years and you haven't dated anybody. And it's like, 3 years because I have a list of the qualities that are necessary now that I've done the hard work on myself, as far as like where I've come and how, like how far I've come in my life and how much I know about myself and what I know I need in another person.
You don't want to backtrack.
Right. I don't want to repeat it, but I also don't want to, I know the qualities that I need to compliment me versus things that I, like just kind of falling into the trap of like, oh, I just don't want to be alone. I'll just take anybody. Yeah. And then that just turns into a whole other issue. Wow. So having those complimentary things where it's like, you're a great person, but it's just never going to work. And then putting a hard stop to it and not messing around with people's feelings or playing somebody like, oh, I just don't want to be alone. And so like, let's do these things and, go hang out or go on a date or whatever, and then mess with their emotions because you can't really commit because it'll never work, but you can't draw that hard line and stop it because you're afraid of being alone.
Have you done that? Have you like gone on dates with that you care to share about? Like where you, I don't know, maybe went on a date with somebody and you were like, yeah, no, this isn't gonna happen. Yeah. What was that like? Like,
it's just easy. I mean, it's pretty mutual for the most part, but I would say, like, you just, even if you just talk to somebody, like I've had somebody where I'm like, oh, I'm interested in them, and I talk to them, I'm like, it would never work. So we are just friends. It's like, that's just how it is, because I don't want to repeat it. Everything I went through was so painful. It was so traumatic for me and heartbreaking. And being somebody as a woman, and like they are more in touch with their emotions and they feel, and it like being so devastated and so heartbroken, I'm like, I do not want to go back to that. So in order to prevent that from happening for me, and because I'm also a mom, I have that element in it as well, where it's like you're going to also be in an emotional, you're going to have an emotional effect on my daughter, and that is, for me, is like a hard stop to protect her. That it's just like, yep, this just wouldn't happen. But I've also been on the other side too, where I've had somebody play me in that way. Wow. And that is so hard. It's so confusing to not understand where you sit with a person, and how he looks at you and treats you. And it's like, what are you doing? What are your feelings? And then it just creates chaos and confusion and heartbreak. Because if you see them with somebody else, you're like, well, are we not? Right. And even that, like before I was married, dating people like that or being interested in somebody, and then all of a sudden they like have a girlfriend, and you're like, but wait, you were just talking to me. And
so what would you say is the cure to that?
Knowing yourself and being confident in who you are and who you were created to be. For me, like a big thing for me is I want somebody who is willing to worship God and follow God. And so when you're looking for that quality, that automatically eliminates a lot of the population of men. But when you still have that in there, it's like when you pick somebody, you want to have somebody that can come alongside you and elevate you to the next level, not somebody that comes alongside you and you are in a committed relationship, married, whatever it is, and then they're either just parallel to you or they're bringing you down. And so you want to look for somebody that's going to encourage you and support you and sustain you and grow you, because they would push you further into worship with God, and into the work that you're called to do. And that's not easy to find.
No, it is not. No.
But yeah, I mean, I was actually talking to somebody recently about dating apps, and I like refuse to go on dating apps. I just think it's like instant rejection. I mean, the way that you swipe nowadays is like, let me swipe because I don't like the way that they look or their name or their age. I mean, it's just like the smallest little piece that you just like next. And that on the other side of that, you're rejecting that person over and over and over. And that person is getting rejected. And rejection sucks. Like, it's so hard. So why put yourself through that when it's like, it's just more work emotionally that you have to work through when that happens. So.
What, I wasn't thinking of this initially, but I just thought of it now. What is it like as obviously a woman? You're probably approached by men more than the other way around. Am I wrong to assume that?
I don't know. I think I'm kind of oblivious to it sometimes, but yeah, I guess.
Where was I going with that? What I guess where I'm going with this, I think there's a stigma that follows as like men, especially Christian men, when they're in periods of singleness and like just trying to like wife up anybody, who moves. And so like what sucks for me is like I want to find a balance where it's not necessarily like I'm coming to you because like I don't know, like I think you're wife material, but like wanting to get to know somebody and like sitting down with them. I almost wonder if it's like I don't know what it is. Like what is that like for you? Like I guess if men approach you, like is it kind of like a
I mean, the biggest thing is if they approach you because they want to be your husband, that's like a huge red flag. It's like, okay, like that's a motive that you kind of want to stay away from. If they approach you, they want to be your friend and they want to just hang out with you and get to know you. Then that's different when it's like a kind way of doing it. I mean, in the Christian world, it's like people are just like all they say is get married, have babies.
Dude, the turnover time is ridiculous. Like literally we'll go from talking to engagement in like 3 months. Yeah, it was 3 weeks. It's like whoa.
Right. I mean, at the same time, like when you know, but I think it really does depend.
What the heck do you? Nah, I don't. When you know. Man.
Well, love is a commitment. It's a choice. It's not a. I'm not like a big soulmate kind of person. Like I found my person. Yeah. It's like no, I'm just committed to like working through life with you. And but yeah, I mean, a lot of it is in the approach, and part of it is just like for me, the first thing I do is look at the fruit. Like, are they fruitful in their life? Are they? How do they treat women? How do they treat their mom? How do they respect their like an older person? Are they, for me personally as a Christian, like are they active in church and are they like seeking God in their life? And like I've kind of coined this phrase like follow the fruit. And if they're fruitful, and if it's fruitful, then they're like in a right relationship with the Lord. It's like strawberries and bananas.
I was thinking of, is it Toucan Sam? Follow your nose for the fruity taste that shows. Yeah.
Fruit Loops. Yeah. Great cereal, by the way. Like if you follow and you see what they're like outside their life, because obviously it's important to get to know the person, but words are one thing, it's actions that are the other. And so when you see the way that they live, the way that they make choices, kind of ask them about their past. I mean, almost instantly you can tell where the person is. And I can't say what the difference is between like the person that you need and the person that you don't, because I haven't found the person that I needed yet. So I can't really like describe what that feeling is, but I can tell you from the people that I've met that I'm like, nope, it's just either talking to their friends, talking to other people that know them or watching them. And honestly, like I've met great guys, really great guys. And in general, just like you meet people and you're like solid, you are a solid person. But it's like, is it going to work for you or not? And that's like the thing that you really have to just focus on is like, if it's not going to work, don't hurt somebody, because they are your brother in Christ as believers. And that is someone's spouse that you're talking to or messing with, and
potential spouse. Yeah.
Right. Potential. Yeah. Not yet. But yeah, like if you look at it from that perspective of like, this person is potentially going to be married someday, and everything that happens in your life, you bring into your marriage. So if you mess with their emotions and you play with them and you treat them as an object versus a human or a child of God, like you're going to create problems for them in their life that they either have to work through or they're going to take into their marriage. So, like you don't want to cause somebody to stumble, like the scripture. So like, you don't want to get in the way of somebody else's sanctification process and them to follow Jesus. So it's like, just don't bother hurting them. It's like, I'd rather be alone than with somebody that is causing issues or like emotionally messing with my mind. Because that's not good for anybody. And people are important.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, they are.
They're important. You're not that important, but
you're not
important.
that important. But
Yeah.
Sweetie, you're not that cute.
Yeah.
I was trying to find a way to like work it in, work it organically, but I don't think I can, so it's fine. But
just go for it.
What is there to be said about emotional maturity?
Oh, talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. There's a lot to be said about that, I would say. I don't know. You maybe not. Like, it depends on the day, probably. I love to have fun and have a good time. And like, yeah, there's days where I'm like, I just want to be a kid, and that's all right, you know? But, I don't know. I guess it's just really like, for me emotionally, seeing the damage that I did to myself, whether that be in the choice of relationships or lifestyle choices, and huge again as a Christian, like looking to fill that void in your life, like not knowing what that is. And for me, I thought it was a guy. And so that's why I really don't think I was a Christian 10 years ago. I would not consider myself that, because the void I felt was filled by Jesus. But the void that I thought I needed was to be married, and it didn't go as planned. And that's kind of what happens when you build your own kingdom. But, yeah, I mean, again, I just think like looking back, it's like, you look at some people, I don't know, I'm guilty of this too. You look at somebody and you're like, oh, it's just another person. But when you really get to know somebody and you really see what's behind them, and the curtains opened as far as like their heart and their emotions and their intentions, everybody has a good heart. There's just a lot of damage that's done to hearts that causes people to become bitter or angry or abusive. And man, we don't need more of that in this world. So in order to prevent that, I mean, words are powerful. So like emotional maturity, I guess you would say, like when you say something to somebody, like you tell someone you love them, or you tell somebody that they're beautiful or whatever, like you better believe that, or you're going to really hurt somebody and really mess with them. And in emotions, you can't see it. It's easy to hide. So for me, I've had people say to me like, oh, I never knew that you were struggling, or I never knew you went through what you went through. And it's like, great. Part of it is like, that's kind of the point, but also part of it is like, that's how good people are at hiding what's really in there.
Yeah.
And
1000%.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Because then when you do get into a relationship with somebody, if they're not emotionally mature and don't know how to handle that, all those emotions are going to come up to the surface.
Yeah.
So
there's a necessary, I mean, just the essence of what you're saying is like, there's got to be this consistent like vetting process, like for yourself, where you're not only like, I guess, taking into account, like, how do I feel right now? And, you know, where's this coming from? But also like, where could this potential person, like, where could this be coming from, you know?
Yeah.
And having, I guess, at least just an awareness, because we're not like freaking psychologists, you know, like I'm not going to be able to look at somebody and be like, what childhood trauma did he experience that has brought him to this moment?
Right.
Why a white shirt today? You know, like,
right. Yeah, look at all the details.
What is he trying to, you know, but like, but having just like some awareness of that, like, like I love what you said about like telling somebody I love you, because I've been told that by someone only for them to just turn around and be like, I don't love you anymore. I like that just doesn't, I guess, sit well with me. It's like, I don't think you ever did, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
and that can create bitterness and resentment, and then you are going to carry that with you to whatever's next. So if you don't deal with that and
mistrust of just like,
and lack of trust.
And do you like, you know,
next time someone tells you they love you, you're like, okay.
You
heard that before.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like, It's and having that awareness of like the power that words can have on people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like this weird paradox because actions really speak a lot, but words are powerful. And so like empty promises are a big thing. And that's a huge thing for me. Like if I say to somebody, like a friend, like a date, whatever it is, like just friends, whoever it is, if it's like, hey, I'm gonna, like, let's go for a walk together or something. I'm just making something up. And it's like, all right, let's do that. And if I act on it, that's one thing. But if they never come back to me and say, let's schedule this time, like, let's actually make this happen, then it's just empty promises. And then empty promises lead to more empty promises. And hey, let's get dinner. Let's hang out sometime. And then you never hear from them, or like,
there's this word that I love to say, and I think I've said it in every episode thus far. Intentionality. I'm going to try and work it in every time.
There you go.
Yeah. I think especially now, where there's just like sensory overload, like we're bombarded with information, we're bombarded with choices.
Yeah.
Being uber intentional, I think, is the cure. And like you're saying, like if you say you're going to do something, don't just be like, yeah, let's put it out there in the universe and maybe one day it'll actually happen. Like set a time, set a date, set a backup date, like just little modes of communication. Like it doesn't have to be anything huge, but just like, hey, are we on the same page with this thing or whatever? And being intentional.
And easier said than done. But if you don't want to hang out with that person, like tell them that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really sorry. I don't like, either I don't foresee this happening, or I really just see this relationship occurring like at work or something. Like in my job, I don't see us hanging out.
Oh my gosh.
Easier said than done. Trust me. Like I don't want to hurt anybody either, but putting that boundary down of like, it's not going to work, or I will hang out with you as long as someone else is there. If it's like an uncomfortable situation or whatever.
I always try to like flip it to a positive, like, and try and do that, in a sense of I don't know, uplifting the person, even if it's like not necessarily what they want. So
a compliment sandwich.
So like, yeah, like necessarily, right.
Break the truth and then
exactly. So like, yeah, like, hey, we should hang out sometime. And it's like, yeah, but like, man, I really like hanging out here at work, and it's just like really uplifts me to be able to do this here. Like you really uplift when and like not like lying to the person, but like, or I don't know, just finding ways to uplift a person while also,
for sure, and I mean, you just got to do that sometimes.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yep.
That's cool. Well, I don't know how much time we've been going, but I've been shooting for like,
I can tell you, about 50 minutes.
Nice. Okay, that's usually where I stop. Well,
okay.
Thank you very much for doing this and sharing.
Actually, I think it's like 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, do you have any closing thoughts? Any advice for people out there who might be in a period of singleness?
Oh my gosh. That's like a whole podcast in itself.
We should do one sometime.
Just the advice we give to somebody. My biggest advice is people that are in seasons of singleness, and whether that's 2 weeks or 10 years, is that you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you as far as either a male or female is not attracted to you because there's something wrong. Like that's not the case. And just knowing, like, if you find your worth in people, you're always going to be let down.
Wow.
So if that's what you're looking for, is that acceptance and assurance is in another person, a relationship, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship, like, good luck. Let me know when that works out for you.
Wow. Yeah.
But you find your worth in who God says you are. And as Christians and believers, like, that's what we solidly rest on. And for me personally, like, being by myself is not easy. Like, trust me, it's really hard sometimes. I'm so sick of being alone some days. But I know that God will put that person in my path when it's the time. And in the meantime, for me, I like pray and I'm like, God, tell me what I can work on to be a better wife someday. Like, what can I do to better myself for that person? Because that person could be doing the same thing.
Or, like, God, how could I just be better, for me, and if those things happen to coincide, like if you meet somebody down the
absolutely.
road,
Yeah. Like working, some days it's like you better yourself. Some days you want to grow to being a better spouse that you're not yet. But yeah, it's all centrally located in your heart as far as like, who are you and how are you directing your heart and in what way? In finding outlets for things like, so for me, I have a journal that I write prayers to my future spouse. So for me, if I like have a longing or a question or something on my heart, like sometimes I'm like, man, I feel like he's just really going through something, and I just like write out a prayer, and that's been really helpful for me, and I'll give it to him someday. And that's just kind of what works. And I'm pretty open about that because that's really helped me heal, like put my mind, because it's like, people, you can look at like all these people in the world and the dating apps and the world, the world itself, which is, it's really actually hard to meet people these days because of social media.
Yeah.
But I think like knowing that what you're doing right now for yourself, like you're going to give yourself to someone else, and how do you want to give yourself to them?
Yeah.
So do you want to give a spouse or someone in your future like a broken, bitter, angry, resentful person? Like, do they deserve that? When you give a gift to someone, you want it to be the best you can do, and the best you can give them. And that would be yourself too. So work on yourself. And again, easier said than done many days, but it's worth it to have the best version of yourself for yourself, but also for that person. And just knowing that, every person here is created in the image of God on this earth. And because of who God is, like, I don't want to play a part in breaking that.
Yeah.
Or hurting someone. And, so it's just better to just really be mindful of what you're saying, who you're with, what you're doing. And again, it's better to be alone and solid than to be with somebody
and completely like, broken.
Yeah. And just causing more destruction.
So. Yeah. Wow. That's great.
There you go. Food for thought for the day.
Food for thought.
The Fruit Loops.
Fruit Loops for thought. I'm glad we both went there. Yeah. Follow your nose for the fruit of the Spirit that shows.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. Find the joy. Find the joy. It's there.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mandy Siess.
Yeah, thanks.
AKA Siess.
Yeah. Spice is
Spice.
It's cool. I like that version.
Mandy Siess.
Yeah. I wanted to be a Spice Girl.
I didn't, but
I would have been concerned if you did.
Never my thing. It's mainly because they're British. But anyways,
oh my gosh.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I appreciate this. Yeah, realness.
Real talk.
And real talk. Wow, look at that. And you guys, be on the lookout because Mandy's going to be doing her own podcast, which will be
eventually.
Eventually. But yeah,
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in the show notes. Exactly. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, as long as I get like a cut or something.
All right.
For whatever advertising.
Yeah. $10. Each click.
Yeah, I'm busy. That works for me. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Awesome.
I guess we're done.